and then Amigo to talk a little bit about what that means and what decisions, if any, that we have to make.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to go over this issue, this is not an insignificant issue, and I think we need to look at it carefully and figure out sort of how we're going to deal with the start date for things. As you know, the constitutional amendment that was adopted is now in the Constitution, provides that maps should be drawn within 45 days of receipt of the census data for the House of Delegates and state Senate districts, and within 60 days of when the census data is provided, is available to us as it relates to the congressional districts. So the question then is, what's the start date for that? And it's not an uncomplicated issue, and I think we might want to sort of talk about it today, and then look at hear what we can from the councils that we have, both the Republican and Democratic councils on this issue. This situation is very different from I think probably any other redistricting effort that has been done since long before World War II. There was I think in the 1960s or 70s, I guess it was, there was a law passed. It was a public law this is at the congressional level, 94-171, that provided a requirement for the Census Bureau to deliver data within a year of the census date. So that since the census date is April 1 of a year ending in 0, the start date for this round of redistricting was April 1st of 2020, and therefore all the data should have been provided by April 1st of 2021. And in fact, in 2011, we actually received the data. We're at the front end because we're one of a handful of states, and actually this year the only one that's having legislative elections in the entire country. And therefore, if we had had that data, we would have been working to get the districts assigned for this decade so that it could have been reflected in the maps that the House of Delegates would be running on this year. However, largely because of the pandemic as well as other issues that came about in development of and implementation of the census, it took them a long time to get the census information forward, and we still not received the final data in terms of in the final formatted assemblage that's required here. So what has happened now is that the final assemblage will be done by we will receive sometime in September, late September. It's supposed to be by September 30 for every state, whether we would receive it in advance of any other stage or whether it will be near the end of September or sometime earlier, I don't know. What the Census Bureau did do, however, was they said they would provide all the states information for all the states across the country in a old formatted form that was not compliant with what they had developed for this census, and we received that. That was what was released last Thursday. So on August 12th, that was released. So one of the start dates options here would be to say declare August 12th as the date in which everything was received, even though it's not formatted, and there'll have to be some work on the part of our contractor, Citygate, to be able to put that into the final format. So we could start it there, and the table says timeline for submission and approval of redistricting maps. That is behind the agenda for today, provides the three options that I think are what we should consider. What this would do is say that if we count August 12 as the start date, then we have to have the House and Senate maps, House of Delegates and the state Senate maps done by September 26, and the congressional maps done by October 11. And then there are other dates that you see in terms of what would happen after that. However, a second option is that we would not say that we had the data, the census data available on August 12th, because it's provided to us in a format where it has to be reconfigured to be able, for us to be able to use it along with some other things. And what Citygate has indicated is that within 2 weeks of August 12th, which would take us to August 26th, that they are, believe that they can have everything formatted there, as well as have all the electoral information that we need, and have the information related to adjustments to that that are specified in the Virginia Code, which deals with the prison population and where they're counted as their residents as of the census date. So that is an option to us for August 26th. There as a second option, and then the final option would be to go to the late September date, in which all states, including Virginia, would receive the full formatted information from the Census Bureau. What that would do is actually would mean that whereas if we have the August 12th date as our start date, we have to have the House and Senate maps by September 26th. If we use the August 26th date, 2 weeks, so that when all the data is actually available to us, because we can't use it despite having received it in the format we have it right now, that would be October 10th. And if we use the late September date, it could be as late as November 14th, in which that would have to be done. So there are some significant effects of that. There are issues, and I gather from talking with people, including staff for the commission here, that the Census Bureau has sort of made an issue and said that the data they supplied on August 12th is compliant with 94-171, the federal law that they're operating under. What that means is that if we picked a date other than August 12th, it's at least possible that someone could challenge us in terms of the legality of the districts that we drew if they were not compliant with the September 26th and October 11 dates for the legislative districts and for the congressional districts. And talking with one of the Democratic counsels to our body here, he indicated that he thought that there was a very good chance that we would be compliant, rule compliant, if there was a challenge, if we took the August 26th date, because we don't have access, the ability to be able to move more quickly in terms of drawing maps until we get the formatting and all those issues resolved as well. The third option, as I said, is the September 30th, or maybe a few days earlier than that, as was done with the August 12th, which was originally supposed to be today on August 16th. So that would put us at November 14 on that one. I think that there is my understanding of the process is that if there were a challenge where we would lose and be ruled to be out of compliance would be if we decided to use the late September date. So I think those are sort of the issues. I've not heard whether what the position of the Republican councils is in terms of perspective on those three options there. So I think it would be helpful for that to be part of the discussion that we have here. And then I think there are a couple of different options. We could select a hard and fast date and pick one of those. We also could say that we would pick one of those as of right now as what we would aim for, but we would also try to get done as quickly as possible so that we would be compliant with something that was earlier than that date. So if we picked August 26th, we could try to get it done by the September 26th date anyway. And if we picked September 30th, we could try to get done by either the September 26th or October 10th dates, rather than the November 14 date. So I think there are ways in which we can try to make a reasonable determination as how we want to proceed today, but also build in options depending upon what type of ruling might come out of other states or out of from the federal level. And certainly the councils, or we could certainly have basically go to court ourselves and try to get a court to rule as to which of those dates is the firm date for us. And that's sort of my summary of this issue. I'd be happy to answer any questions that I could.